Once again, I'm gonna just get it started because I'm not finna wait however long it takes for people to come in here. I'm gonna just go through it so we can get this cycle over and restart. Second Chronicles, chapter 1. Solomon, son of Dawid, strengthened himself over his kingdom. Yahweh his Elohim was with him, and he made him very great. Solomon spoke to all of Yasharal, to officers of the thousands and the hundreds, to judges, to every ruler in all the Yasharal, and to the heads of families. And Solomon, along with the entire congregation, went to the high place at Gibeon for Elohim's tent of meeting, which Moses, the servant of Yahweh, had erected in the wilderness, was there. However, Dawid had brought up the ark of Elohim from Kiriath Jearim to the place that Dawid had prepared for it, for he had pitched a tent for it in Jerusalem. But the copper altar that Bezalel, son of Uri, son of Hur, had made was placed before the tabernacle of Yahweh. So Solomon and the congregation sought it out. Solomon was brought up offerings there before Yahweh on the copper altar that was before the tent of meeting. He brought upon it 1,000 burnt offerings. That night Elohim appeared to Solomon and said to him, "Request what I shall give to you." Solomon said to Elohim, "You have done a great kindness with Dawid my father, and you have made me a king in his place. Now Yahweh Elohim, may your words with my father Dawid be fulfilled, for you have made me king over a nation as numerous as the dust of the earth. Now grant me wisdom and knowledge, so that I may go out and come in before this people. For who can judge this great people of yours?" Elohim said to Solomon, "Because this is what you had in your heart, and you did not request riches, property, honor, or the life of your enemies, nor did you request a long life, but you requested wisdom and knowledge so that you can judge my people over whom I have made you king. The wisdom and knowledge are granted to you. I will even grant you riches and property and honor, such as kings before you have never had, nor will there be such a thing after you." Solomon, who had gone to the high place in Gibeon, went to Jerusalem from before the tent of meeting, and he began his reign over Yisrael. Solomon assembled chariots and horsemen. He had 1,400 chariots and 12,000 riders. He kept them in chariot cities and left some with the king in Jerusalem. And the king made silver and gold as common as stones in Jerusalem, and he made cedars as abundant as sycamores in the lowland. The source of Solomon's horses were from Egypt and from Kiev. The king's traders brought them from Kiev for a high price. They went up and brought out a chariot from Egypt for 600 pieces of silver and horses for 150. Solomon's traders would also export for all the kings of the Hittites and the kings of Aram. Solomon then proposed to build a temple for the name of Yahweh and a royal palace for himself. Chapter 2. Solomon counted out 70,000 men who carried burdens and 80,000 men who hewed stone in the mountain, with 3,600 people overseeing them. Solomon sent word to Hiram, king of Tyre, saying, "Just as you did for my father Dawid, when you sent him cedars to build himself a house to live in, behold, I am building a temple for the name of Yahweh my Elohim, in which to sanctify him, to burn incense of spices before him, to send a permanent stack of showbread, and to bring burnt offerings each morning and evening, and on Shabbats and on new moons and on the festivals of Yahweh our Elohim, a permanent duty upon Yisrael. The temple that I am building is large, for our Elohim is greater than all gods, and who can gather enough strength to build a temple for him? For the heavens and the highest heavens cannot contain him. And who am I to build a temple for him except to burn offerings before him? So now send me a wise man to work with gold, silver, copper, and iron, and with purple, crimson, and blue wool, and who knows how to cut great engravings, along with the craftsmen who are with me in Judah and Jerusalem, whom my father Dawid prepared. Also send me cedar trees, cypresses, and almogs from Lebanon, for I know that your servants know how to cut down the trees of Lebanon. Behold, my servants will be with your servants to prepare numerous trees for me, for the temple that I am building will be great and extraordinary. Behold, I have commissioned 20,000 cores of wheat as sustenance for lumbermen, for those who cut down the trees, for your servants, and 20,000 cores of barley, 20,000 baths of wine, and 20,000 baths of wool. Hiram, king of Tyre, responded in writing, sending to Solomon, "In Yahweh's love for his people, he has placed you as king over them." Hiram said, Blessed is Yahweh, the Elohim of Yasharal, who made the heavens and the earth, who gave King Dawid a wise son who has intelligence and understanding, who will build a temple for Yahweh and a royal palace. Now I have sent an artisan who understands wisdom, who has worked for Haran and for my father. He is the son of a woman of the daughters of Dan, whose father is a man of Tyre, who knows how to work with gold, silver, copper, iron, stones, and wood, and with purple, blue, linen, and crimson fabrics, and how to cut all kinds of engravings and make all kinds of designs that might be presented to him with your artisan, and make all kinds of designs that might be presented. Oh, I'm sure. All right, did I read that already? And with your artisan and the artisans of my master, your father Dawid. And now the wheat and the barley, the oil and the wine that my master has mentioned, let him send them to his servants. We will cut down trees from the Lebanon according to all your needs, and we will bring them to you as rafts on by rafts on the sea of Jaffa, and you will bring them up to Jerusalem. Solomon counted all the foreign men who lived in the land of Yasharal besides the census with which his father Dawid had counted them, and they were found to be 153,600. He made 70,000 of them carriers of burden, and 80,000 of them hewers in the mountain, with 3,600 overseers to direct the people's work. Chapter 3. Solomon then began building the temple of Yahweh in Jerusalem on Mount Moriah, where he had appeared to his father Dawid. He established it at Dawid's place, on the threshing floor of Ornan the Jebusite. He began to build on the second day of the second month, in the 4th year of his reign. These are the dimensions of the foundations laid by Solomon for building the temple of Elohim. The length in cubits, like the original measurement, was 60 cubits. The width was 20 cubits. The hall, whose length ran along the width of the front of the temple, was 20 cubits long, and its height was 120 cubits. He overlaid it inside with pure gold. He covered over the large chamber with cypress wood, which he then overlaid with fine gold, and he drew palm trees and chains on it. He overlaid the temple with precious stones for splendor. The gold was paravaim gold. He covered the temple, the beams, the side posts, its walls, and its doors with gold, and he engraved cherubim on the walls. He then made the chamber of the Holy of Holies. Its length, along with the width of the building, was 20 cubits, and its width was 20 cubits. He overlaid it with fine gold, using 600 talents. The weight of the nails was 50 golden shekels. He also overlaid the upper story with gold. In the chamber of the Holy of Holies, he made 2 cherubim with the appearance of children, and they overlaid them with gold. The length of the cherubim's wings was 20 cubits. The wing of one was 5 cubits, touching the wall of the temple, with the other wing being 5 cubits, touching the wing of the other cherub. The other cherub's wing was 5 cubits, reaching the opposite wall of the temple, with the other wing being 5 cubits, touching the wing of the other cherub. The wings of these cherubim thus spread out over 20 cubits. They stood upon their feet, facing the temple. He made the curtain out of blue, purple, crimson, and linen fabric, and he embroidered cherubim upon it. He made 2 pillars in front of the temple, 35 cubits in length, and the cover for its top was 5 cubits. He made chains for the partition. He also put them on the tops of the pillars. And he made 100 pomegranates, which he placed on the chains. He erected the pillars at the front of the sanctuary, one on the right and one on the left. And he called the right one Jachin, and the left one Boaz. Chapter 4. He made a copper altar, its length 20 cubits, its width 20 cubits, and its height 10 cubits. He made a sea of cast metal, 10 cubits in diameter, circular in shape, 5 cubits high, and a 30-cubit line could go around it. It had figures of bulls under its surrounding all around, 10 per cubit, circling the tank all around, 2 rows of bulls, which were cast with the casting of the sea. It stood upon 12 oxen, 3 facing north, 3 facing west, 3 facing south, and 3 facing east. The sea was on top of them, and their haunches were toward the center of the sea. Its thickness was a handbreadth. Its lip was like the lip of a cup with a rose blossom design. Its capacity was 2,000 bath measures. He then made 10 lavers, placing 5 on the right and 5 on the left, from which to wash. They would rinse the parts of the burnt offerings from them, while the sea was for the Kohanim to wash with. He then made the 10 golden candelabra, according to their specification, placing them in the sanctuary, 5 on the right and 5 on the left. He then made 10 tables, setting them in the sanctuary, 5 on the right and 5 on the left. He also made 100 golden basins. He then made the courtyard of the Kohanim and the great courtyard in the great courtyard area, with doors for the courtyard area, and he overlaid the doors with copper. He placed the sea at the right of the temple, eastward opposite the south. Hiram also made the pots, the shovels, and the bowls, and Hiram finished doing the work that he did for King Solomon for the temple of Elohim. 2 pillars, the 2 bases, and capitals. They were on top of the pillars. The 2 nettings to cover the 2 bases of the capitals that were on top of the pillars. The pomegranates, 400 for the 2 nettings. 2 rows of pomegranates for each netting to cover the 2 bases of the capitals that were on top of the pillars. He made the stands, and he made the lavers upon the stands, the 1 sea, and the 12 bulls under it. The pots, the shovels, the forks, and all their vessels Hiram made, as his father would have for King Solomon for the temple of Yahweh, from pure copper. The king cast them in the plain of the Jordan, in firm clay, between Succoth and Zareda. Solomon made all these articles in vast number. The weight of the copper could not be determined. Solomon made all the articles for the temple of Elohim and the golden altar, the tables with the showbread upon them, the candelabra and their lamps of fine gold for kindling as required in front of the inner sanctum, with their flowers, lamps, and tongs of gold, the finest gold, the musical instruments and the bowls, spoons and pans, and all the fine gold, and the doorway of the temple, its inner doors for the Holy of Holies, and the doors of the temple, that is the sanctuary of gold. Chapter 5. When all the work that Solomon had done for the temple of Yahweh was completed, Solomon brought that which his father David had sanctified, and he placed the silver, the gold, and all the articles in the treasuries of the temple of Elohim. Then Solomon gathered together the elders of Yasharal, all the heads of the tribes, and the leaders of the ancestral families of the children of Yasharal to Jerusalem, to bring up the ark of the covenant of Yahweh from the city of David, which is Zion. All the men of Yasharal gathered before the king on the festival of Sukkot, which is in the 7th month. All the elders of Yasharal came, and the Levites bore the ark. They brought up the ark and the tent of meeting, and all the sacred articles that were in that tent. The Kohanim and the Levites brought them up. King Solomon and the entire assembly of Yasharal, who had assembled with him before the ark, offered up sheep and cattle, too abundant to be numbered or counted. The Kohanim brought the ark of the covenant of Yahweh to its place, to the inner sanctum of the temple, to the Holy of Holies, to beneath the wings of the cherubim. For the cherubim spread their wings over the place of the ark. The cherubim covered over the ark and its staves from above. They extended the staves so that the lips of the staves from the ark were noticeable upon the partition, but they were not showing on the outside. They remain there to this very day. Nothing was in the ark but the 2 stone tablets that Moshe placed there in Horeb, which Yahweh covenanted with the children of Yasharal when they left Egypt. And it was as the Kohanim left the sanctuary, for all the Kohanim who were present had sanctified themselves. The divisions were not observed. The Levites, all of whom were singers, Asaph, Haman, Jeduthun, and their sons and their kinsmen were dressed in linen, with cymbals, lyres, harps, and stood to the east of the altar. With them were 120 Kohanim blowing trumpets. There was unison among the trumpeters and the singers, sounding out in one voice to praise and give thanksgiving to Yahweh. And when the sound of the trumpets and cymbals and other musical instruments sounded out with praise of Yahweh, for he is good, for his kindness is forever. And the cloud filled the house, the temple of Yahweh, and the Kohanim could not stand and minister because of the cloud, for the glory of Yahweh filled the temple of Elohim. Shalom. I'm in chapter 6 right now, 2nd Chronicles. Then Solomon said, Yahweh said that he would dwell in the thick cloud. I have built a house of habitation for you, and a house and a foundation for your dwelling forever. Then the king turned his face and blessed the entire congregation of Yasharal, while the entire congregation of Yasharal was standing. He then said, Blessed is Yahweh, Elohim of Yasharal, who spoke with his word to my father Dawid, and fulfilled his with power, saying, From the day when I took my people Yasharal out of the land of Egypt, I did not choose a city from among all the tribes of Yasharal, in which, oh, this damn mosquito, in which, where was I at? To build a temple where my name would be. Nor did I choose a man to be a ruler over my people Yasharal, but I chose Jerusalem for my name to be there. And I chose Dawid to rule over my people Yasharal. It was in the heart of my father Dawid to build a temple for the sake of Yahweh, Elohim of Yasharal. But Yahweh said to my father David, Inasmuch as it has been in your heart to build a temple for my name, you have done well by having this in your heart. You, however, shall not build the temple. Rather, your son, who will emerge from your loins, he will build a temple for my name. Now Yahweh has fulfilled his word that he spoke. For I have risen in the place of my father Dawid, and I sit on the throne of Yasharal, as Yahweh spoke. And I have built the temple for the sake of Yahweh, Elohim of Yasharal's name. And I have set there the ark, wherein is the covenant of Yahweh, which he made with the children of Yasharal. Dang, you left quick. He stood before the altar of Yahweh in front of the entire congregation of Yasharal and spread his hands. For Solomon had made a copper laver, 5 cubits long, 5 cubits wide, and 3 cubits tall, and placed it in the midst of the courtyard, and that he now stood on it. Then he knelt on his knees in front of the entire congregation of Yasharal, and spread out his hands towards heaven. He said, Yahweh, Elohim of Yasharal, there is none like you, O Elohim, in the heavens nor on the earth, who preserves the covenant and the kindness of your servants who walk before you with all their heart. For you have preserved for your servant, my father Dawid, all that you have spoken to him. You spoke with your mouth, and with your power fulfilled this very day. And now, O Yahweh Elohim Yasharal, preserve your promise to your servant, my father Dawid, that you spoke to him, saying, There shall not cease from you a man to sit before me upon the throne of Yasharal, provided that your children preserve their way to follow my Torah, as you have gone before me. So now, Yahweh Elohim Yasharal, cause your word that you spoke to your servant Dawid to come true. Would Elohim truly dwell on earth with man? Behold, the heavens and the highest heavens cannot contain you. And surely not this temple that I have built. But may you turn to the prayer of your servant and to his supplication, O Yahweh my Elohim, to hear the cry and the prayer that your servant prays before you today. That your eyes be open toward this temple day and night, to the place of which you said that you would place your name there, to hear the prayer that your servant shall pray in this place. And may you hear the supplications of your servant and of your people Yasharal, which they pray in this place. May you hear it from the place of your habitation, from heaven, and may you hear and forgive. If a man should wrong his fellow, who imposes an oath upon him and adjures him, and the oath comes before your altar in this temple, may you hear from heaven. May you act and judge your servants, condemning the wicked party, to place the consequences of his way upon his head, and vindicating the righteous party, to give him according to his righteousness. If your people are defeated by an enemy because they have sinned against you, and then they return to you and praise your name, and they pray and supplicate before you in this temple, may you hear from heaven and forgive the sin of your people, Yasharal, and return them to the land that you gave them to them and the forefathers. Write this down. Chronicles 6:22. If the heavens are restrained and there be no rain, for they have sinned against you, and they pray toward this place and praise your name, and they repent of their sins so that you will respond to them. May you hear from heaven and forgive the sin of your servants and your people Yasharal, when you teach them the proper path in which they should walk. And may you give rain upon your land, which you gave to your people as a heritage. If there be a famine in the land, if there be a pestilence, if there be a wind blast or withering or locust or grasshopper, if Yasharal's enemy oppress it in the land of their cities, any plague, any disease, for any prayer or any supplication, that any person of your entire people Yasharal may have, each man knowing his own afflictions and his own pain, when he spreads out his hands in prayer toward this temple, may you hear from heaven, the foundation of your abode, and forgive and recompense every man according to his ways, and you know his heart. For you alone know the hearts of the people, so that they may fear you, to follow your ways all the days that they live upon the land which you gave to our forefathers. Let's screenshot that one. Also a Gentile who is not of your people Yasharal, but will come from a distant land for your great name's sake, and your strong hand and your outstretched arm, and they come to pray in this temple. May you hear from heaven, the foundation of your abode, and act according to all that the Gentile calls out to you, so that all the nations of the world may know your name, to fear you as does your people Yasharal, and to know that your name is proclaimed upon this temple that I have built. Well, that kills that camp doctrine. That Gentiles can't follow the Most High. Stop that wicked shit. When your people goes to war against their enemy alongside the course on which you shall send them, and they direct their prayers to Yahweh by way of this city that you have chosen in the temple that I built for your name, from heaven may you hear their prayer and their supplication and carry out their judgment. When they sin against you, for there is no man who never sins, and you become angry with them, and you deliver them to an enemy, and their captors take them away to a faraway or nearby land, and they take it to heart in the land where they have been taken captive, and they repent and supplicate to you in the land of their captivity, saying, we have sinned, we have been iniquitous, we have been wicked, and they return to you with all their heart and with all their soul in the land of their captivity, of those who had captured them, and they pray by way of their land that you gave to their forefathers, and by way of the city that you have chosen, and through the temple that I built for your name. May you hear their prayer and their supplications from heaven, the foundation of your abode, and carry out their judgment, and forgive your people who sinned against you. Now, my Elohim, may your eyes be open and your ears attentive to the prayers of this place. Now arise, Yahweh Elohim, to your resting place, you in the ark of your might. May your Kohanim, O Yahweh Elohim, be clothed in salvation, and may your righteous ones rejoice in goodness. Yahweh Elohim, do not turn back the request of your anointed one. Remember the righteousness of your servant Dawid. Chapter 7. Shalom. In 2 Chronicles, chapter 7. When Solomon finished praying, the fire came down from heaven and consumed the burnt offering and the feast offerings, and the glory of Yahweh filled the temple. The Kohanim could not enter the temple of Yahweh, for the glory of Yahweh filled the temple of Yahweh. All the children of Yasharal were watching when the fire and the glory of Yahweh descended upon the temple, and they bowed down with their faces to the ground upon the floor, and they prostrated themselves and were giving praise to Yahweh. For he is good, for his mercy endures forever. That's what a lot of us aren't doing. We're too proud to get on our hands and knees or face to the ground. The king and the entire people were bringing an offering before Yahweh. Solomon brought the cattle offering in 22,000 and sheep of 120,000, and they dedicated the temple of Elohim, the king and all the people. The Kohanim were standing at their watches, as well as the Levites with Yahweh's musical instruments, which King Dawid had made for giving thanks to Yahweh, for his mercy endures forever. For Dawid's praises in their hands, while the Kohanim were blowing trumpets up opposite them, and all Yasharal was standing. Solomon sanctified the interior of the courtyard that was before the temple of Yahweh, for there he performed the service of the burnt offerings and the fats of the peace offerings. For the copper altar that Solomon had made could not contain the burnt offerings, the meal offerings, and the fat. At that time, Solomon instituted the celebration for 7 days, and all Yasharal was with him, a very huge congregation. from the approach of Hamath unto the brook of Egypt. On the 8th day they celebrated an assembly, for they celebrated the dedication of the altar for 7 days, and the festival of Sukkot for 7 days. On the 23rd day of the month, Solomon sent the people off to their homes, joyous and good-hearted over the goodness that Yahweh had shown to Dawid and to Solomon and to his people Yasharal. When Solomon finished the temple of Yahweh in the king's palace, and succeeded in all that had entered at Solomon's mind to make in the temple of Yahweh and in his own house, Yahweh appeared to Solomon at night and said to him, I have heard your prayer, and I have chosen this place to be a temple of offering for me. If I ever restrain the heavens so that there will be no rain, or if I ever command locusts to devour the land, or if I ever send a pestilence among my people, and my people upon whom my name is proclaimed, humble themselves and pray and seek my presence and repent of their evil ways, I will hear from heaven and forgive their sin and heal their land. Now my eyes will be open and my ears attentive to the prayers of this place. And now I have chosen and sanctified this temple, that my name shall remain there forever, and my eyes and my heart shall remain there all the days. And as for you, if you walk before me as your father Dawid walked, and do all that I commanded you, and observe my decrees and my statutes, then I shall uphold the throne of your kingdom, as I promised your father Dawid, saying, no man of yours will be cut off as a ruler of Yasharal. But if you turn away and forsake my decrees and commandments that I place before you, and you go and worship the gods of others and prostrate yourself to them, then I will uproot them upon my land that I gave them. And this temple that I have sanctified for my name, I will dismiss from my presence. And I will make Yasharal a parable and a conversation piece among all the nations. And this temple, which should be so exalted, all who pass by it will be appalled and say, why did Yahweh do such a thing to this land and this temple? And they will say, because they forsook Yahweh, the Elohim of their fathers, who brought them out of Egypt, and they grasped the gods of others, and prostrated themselves to them and worshipped them. Therefore he brought all this evil upon them. Chapter 8. It happened at the end of the 20 years during which Solomon built the temple of Yahweh in his own palace. Solomon built up the cities that Hiram had given him, and he settled people of Yasharal there. Solomon went to Hamath Zeboah, and he subdued it. He built up Tadmor in the wilderness and all the storage cities that he built in Hamath. He also built up Upper Bethhoron and Lower Bethhoron as fortified cities with walls, gates, and bars, as well as Baalath and all the storage cities which Solomon had, and all the chariot cities and all the cavalry cities, and every luxury of Solomon that he wished to build in Jerusalem, and in the Lebanon, and in all the land of his dominion. All the people who were left of the Hittite, the Amorite, the Perizzite, the Hivite, and the Jebusite, who were not of the children of Yasharal, of their descendants who were left after them in the land, whom the children of Yasharal did not eliminate, Solomon conscripted them as laborers until this day. But Solomon did not enslave any one of the children of Yasharal for his labor, for they were men of war, and were commanders for his officers, and the commanders of his chariots and his riders. And these were the commanders of the commissioners of King Solomon, 250 men who directed the people. Solomon brought up Pharaoh's daughter from the city of Dawid to her house that he had built for her. For he thought, I should not have a wife dwell in the house of Dawid, king of Yasharal, for they are holy places, being that the ark of Yahweh had been brought there. At that time, Solomon brought up burnt offerings to Yahweh upon the altar of Yahweh that he had built before the hall, as well as what was required for each day on its day, to offer in accordance with the commandment of Moses, for Sabbaths and for new moons, and for the appointed festivals 3 times a year, the festival of Massos, the festival of Shavuot, and the festival of Sukkos. He set up the divisions of Kohanim according to the instructions of his father Dawid for their service, and the Levites in their watches to praise and to minister opposite the Kohanim for each day's need in his day, and the gatekeepers in their division for each gate. For this was the commandment of Dawid, the man of Elohim. And they did not deviate from the king's command concerning the Kohanim and the Levites, concerning all matters and concerning the treasuries. All of Solomon's labor was firmly established, from the day of the laying of the foundations of the temple of Yahweh to its finish. The temple of Yahweh was complete. At that time, Solomon went to Ezion-Geber and to Eloth on the coast of the land of Edom. Hiram sent him with his servants, ships and servants who knew the sea. They came to Ophir with Solomon's servants and took from there 450 talents of gold and brought them to King Solomon. Chapter 9. The queen of Sheba heard of Solomon's fame, and she came to test Solomon's wisdom with riddles in Jerusalem, with a very large entourage, and with camels bearing large amounts of spices and gold and precious stones. She came before Solomon, and she spoke with him about all that was in her heart. Solomon told her the solutions to all her questions. There was not a thing hidden from Solomon that he could not tell her. The queen of Sheba saw the wisdom of Solomon, the palace that he had erected, the food served at his table, and the seating of his servants, the station of his attendants and their uniforms, his cupbearers and their uniforms, and his passageway by which he ascended to the temple of Yahweh. And she was overwhelmed. She said to the king, "True was the word that I had heard in my country about your words and your wisdom. I had not believed their words until I came and my own eyes saw, and behold, even half of your immense wisdom was not told to me. You have surpassed the report that I had heard. Fortunate are your men, fortunate are these servants of yours, who stand before you constantly and hear your wisdom. May Yahweh your Elohim be blessed, who has chosen you to place upon his throne as king, for Yahweh your Elohim, because of your Elohim's love for Yasharal, to establish it forever. He has made you king over them to do justice and righteousness." She then gave the king 120 talents of gold and a large amount of spices and precious stones. There has never again been such a large quantity of spices as that which the queen of Sheba gave to King Solomon. In addition, Hiram's servants and Solomon's servants, who had brought gold from Ophir, also brought almog trees and precious stones from Ophir. The king made the almog wood into pathways for the temple of Yahweh and the palace of the king, and into harps and lyres for the singers, such things that had never been seen before in Judah. King Solomon gave the queen of Sheba whatever answer she desired to what she had asked, beside reciprocating the gifts that she had brought to the king. Then she turned around and went to her land, she and her servants. The amount of gold that came to Solomon in 1 year was 666 talents of gold, besides the tax income that merchants and spice peddlers brought in. All the vassal kings and the governors of the land also brought gold and silver to Solomon. King Solomon made 200 shields of beaten gold. He would put 600 measures of beaten gold into each shield, and 300 bucklers of beaten gold. He would put 300 measures of gold into each buckler, and the king placed them in the house of the forest of Lebanon. The king made a great throne of ivory and overlaid it with pure gold. The throne had 6 steps and a golden ramp attached to the throne. It had arms on either side at the place of the seat, with 2 figures of lions standing next to the arms. There were 12 figures of lions standing there on the 6 steps of either side. Nothing like it had ever been made for any kingdom. All of King Solomon's drinking utensils were gold, and all the fixtures of the house of the forest of Lebanon were pure gold. There was no silver, for silver was not considered of any worth in the days of Solomon. For the king had ships that went to Tarshish with Hiram's servants. Once in 3 years, the Tarshish ships would arrive, carrying gold, silver, ivory, and monkeys and peacocks. King Solomon became greater than all the kings of the land in wealth and wisdom. And all the kings of the world wanted to see Solomon to hear his wisdom, which Elohim had put in his heart. And each one of them would bring his gift: silver vessels, golden vessels, clothing, weapons, spices, horses, and mules. Each year is due in its year. Solomon had 4,000 stables of horses and chariots and 12,000 riders. He kept them in chariot cities and left some with the king in Jerusalem. He ruled over all the kings from the Euphrates River to the land of the Philistines up to the border of Egypt. The king made silver in Jerusalem as common as stones, and he made cedars as abundant as sycamores in the low land. They would export horses from Egypt to Solomon and from all the lands. The rest of the events of Solomon, earlier and later, behold, they are written in the records of Nathan the prophet, and in the prophecies of Ahijah the Shilonite, and the visions of Jiddo the seer concerning Jeroboam, son of Nebat. Solomon reigned over all Yasharal in Jerusalem for 40 years. Solomon lay with his forefathers, and they buried him in the city of David his father. His son Rehoboam reigned in his place. Chapter 10. Rehoboam went to Shechem, for all of Yasharal had come to Shechem to make him king. When Jeroboam, son of Nebat, heard this while he was in Egypt, where he had fled before King Solomon, Jeroboam returned from Egypt, for all the people sent for him and summoned him. Jeroboam came along with all of Yasharal, and they spoke to Rehoboam, saying, Your father made our yoke of taxation difficult. Now you alleviate your father's difficult workload and his heavy yoke that he placed upon us, and we will serve you. He said to them, Go away for 3 more days, and then come back to me. So the people left. King Rehoboam took counsel with the elders, who had stood before his father Solomon while he was alive, saying, How would you advise what word to respond to this people? They spoke to him, saying, If you are good to this people and show them favor, and speak kind words to them, they will be your servants all the days. But he ignored the advice of the elders who had counseled him, and he took counsel with the youths who had grown up with him, who ministered before him. He said to them, What would you advise? What words shall we respond to this people who has spoke to me, saying, Alleviate the yoke that your father placed upon us? The young men who had grown up with him spoke with him, saying, This is what you should say to the people who have spoken to you, saying, Your father made our yoke heavy. You alleviate it for us. This is what you should say to them. My little finger is thicker than my father's loins. So now my father saddles you with a heavy yoke. I shall add to your yoke. My father chastised you with sticks, and I with scorpions. That boy wicked. Jeroboam and all the people came to Rehoboam on the 3rd day, as the king had spoken, saying, Return to me on the 3rd day. The king responded harshly to them. King Rehoboam ignored the advice of the elders. He spoke to them according to the counsel of the youths, saying, I shall make your yoke heavy, and I shall add to it. My father chastised you with sticks, and I with scorpions. The king did not listen to the people, for it was cause from Elohim, in order that Yahweh should fulfill his word that he had spoken through the hand of Ahijah the Shilonite to Jeroboam, son of Nebat. All the Yasharal saw that the king did not listen to them, and the people responded to the king, saying, What share have we in the house of David? We have no heritage in the son of Jesse. Back to your homes, O Yasharal. Now see to your own house, O king of David, kingdom of David. All the men in Yasharal left for home. As for the children of Yasharal who lived in the cities of Judah, Rehoboam ruled over them. King Rehoboam dispatched Hadoram, who was in charge of the tax, and the children of Yasharal pelted him with stones, and he died. King Rehoboam then hastened to mount his chariot to flee Jerusalem. Thus Israel, or Yasharal, rebelled against the house of David to this day. Chapter 11. Rehoboam came to Jerusalem and gathered together the house of Judah and Benjamin, 180,000 choice warriors to fight against the house of Yasharal, to return the kingdom to Rehoboam. The word of Yahweh then came to Shemaiah, the man of Elohim, saying, Speak to Rehoboam, son of Solomon, king of Judah, to all of Yasharal in Judah and Benjamin, saying, Thus said Yahweh, Do not go up and fight with your brethren. Let each man return to his home, for this matter was brought about by me. They obeyed the words of Yahweh and turned back from going to fight Jeroboam. Rehoboam remained in Jerusalem. He built up cities for defense in Judah. He built up Bethlehem, Etam, Tekoa, Bethzur, Sokoh, Adulam, Gath, Marishah, Ziph, Adaraim, Lachish, Azekah, Zorah, Aijalam, and Hebron, which are in Judah and Benjamin as fortified cities. He strengthened the fortified cities, and in them he placed rulers and storehouses of food, oil, and wine. In each city he stored shields and spears. and he fortified them very greatly. Thus Judah and Benjamin remained his. The Kohanim and Levites throughout Yasharal presented themselves to Rehoboam from all their territories, for the Levites had abandoned their outlying areas and their property and went to Judah and Jerusalem, because Jeroboam and his sons had dismissed them from ministering to Yahweh, for he had established priests for himself for the high places, and demons and calves that he had made. After them, people from all the tribes of Yasharal who had dedicated their hearts to seek out Yahweh, the Elohim of Yasharal, came to Jerusalem to bring offerings to Yahweh, the Elohim of their fathers. They strengthened the kingdom of Judah, and they bolstered Rehoboam, son of Solomon, for 3 years. For they followed the path of Dawid and Solomon for 3 years. Rehoboam took Mahalath, daughter of Jeremoth, son of Dawid, for a wife, as well as Abihail, daughter of Eliab, son of Jesse. She bore him sons, Jeush, Shemariah, and Zaham. After her he took Ma'akah, daughter of Absalom, who bore him Abijah, Attai, Ziza, and Shalomith. Rehoboam loved Ma'akah, daughter of Absalom, more than his other wives and concubines, for he had married 18 wives and 60 concubines, and he begot 28 sons and 60 daughters. So Rehoboam made Abijah, son of Ma'akah, his head, to be ruler of his brothers, in order to make him king. He had insight, and he dispersed some of his sons throughout all the lands of Judah and Benjamin. To all the fortified cities, he gave them abundant supplies of food and sought out many wives. Chapter 12. It happened that as Rehoboam's kingdom became established and he became strong, he forsook the Torah of Yahweh and all Yasharal with him. It was in King Rehoboam's 5th year that Shishak, king of Egypt, ascended against Jerusalem, because they had betrayed Yahweh with 1,200 chariots and 60,000 horsemen, and countless people who came with him from Egypt, Lubim, Sukkim, and Ethiopians. He captured Judah's fortified cities, and he approached up to Jerusalem. Shemaiah the prophet came to Rehoboam and the officers of Judah who had gathered together in Jerusalem because of Shishak, and he said to them, Thus said Yahweh, you have abandoned me, so I too have abandoned you into the hands of Shishak. The officers of Yasharal and the king thereupon humbled themselves, and they said, Yahweh is the righteous one. When Yahweh saw that they had humbled themselves, the word of Yahweh came to Shemaiah, saying, They have humbled themselves, I will not destroy them. I will grant them a small portion as a remnant, and my wrath will not be poured out upon Jerusalem through Shishak. Rather, they will become slaves to him, and they will recognize the difference between serving me and serving the kingdoms of the lands. When Shishak had ascended against Jerusalem, he took away the treasures of the temple of Yahweh and the treasures of the king's palace. He took everything. He also took the golden shields that Solomon had made. King Rehoboam made copper shields in their place, and he placed them in the charge of the captains of the runners, who guarded the entrance to the king's palace. And it will be that whenever the king will come to the temple of Yahweh, the runners will come and bear them, and then return them to the chamber of the runners. But when he humbled himself, the anger of Yahweh turned back from him, not destroying Judah completely. Furthermore, in Judah things went well. King Rehoboam strengthened himself in Jerusalem and reigned, for he was 41 years old when he became king. And he reigned for 17 years in Jerusalem, the city that Yahweh chose, which to place his name, out of all the tribes of Yasharal. His mother's name was Naamah the Ammonite. He did evil, for he did not set his heart to seek out Yahweh. The earlier and later events of Rehoboam, behold, they are written in the words of Shemaiah the prophet and Iddo the seer, with the genealogy. The wars between Rehoboam and Jeroboam were constant. Rehoboam lay with his forefathers and was buried in the city of Dawid. His son Abijah reigned in his place. 13. In the 18th year of the reign of King Jeroboam, Abijah became king over Judah. He reigned in Jerusalem for 3 years. His mother's name was Micaiah, daughter of Uriel of Gibeah. There was a war between Abijah and Jeroboam. Abijah led the battle with an army of mighty fighters, 400,000 chosen men, And Jeroboam set himself for war against him with 800,000 chosen men, mighty warriors. Abijah stood up on top of Mount Zemaraim, which is in the hills of Ephraim, and he said, Hear me, Jeroboam, and all the Yasharol. Surely you should know that Yahweh Elohim of Yasharol gave kingship over Yasharol to Dawid forever, to him and his children for an everlasting covenant. But Jeroboam, son of Nebat, a servant of Solomon, son of David, got up and rebelled against his master. Worthless, lawless people gathered around him, and they set themselves resolutely against Rehoboam, son of Solomon, when Rehoboam was young and weak-hearted, and did not stand up firmly against them. And now you intend to stand defiantly before the kingdom of Yahweh that is in the hands of David's descendants. You are a great multitude, and with you are the golden calves that Jeroboam has made for you as gods. Have you not dismissed the Kohanim of Yahweh, the sons of Aaron, and the Levites, and made for yourselves priests like the nations of the land? Anyone who comes forward to initiate himself with a young bull and 7 rams becomes a priest to the non-God. But as for us, Yahweh is our Elohim, and we have not forsaken him. The priests who minister Yahweh are the sons of Aaron, and the Levites do their work. Also they burn offerings to Yahweh every morning and every evening, as well as an incense of spices. And there is an array of bread upon the pure table, and a golden candelabrum, and its lamps to kindle every evening. For we observe the charge of Yahweh our Elohim, while you have forsaken him. Behold, with us at our head are Elohim and his Kohanim, and blasting trumpets to blast against you. Children of Yasharal, do not wage war against Yahweh, the Elohim of your forefathers, for you will not succeed. Meanwhile, Jeroboam had moved an ambush party around to approach from their rear so that they were in front of Judah and the ambush was behind them. Judah turned around and behold, the battle was in front and in the rear. They cried out to Yahweh while the Kohanim sounded the trumpets. The men of Judah shouted, and it happened that as the men of Judah shouted, Elohim struck Jeroboam and all of Yasharal before Abijah and Judah. The children of Yasharal fled before Judah, and Elohim delivered them into their hand. Abijah and his people inflicted a very great blow against them, and 500,000 chosen men of Yasharal fell slain. The children of Yasharal became humbled at that time, and the people of Judah gained strength, for they relied on Yahweh, the Elohim of their fathers. Abijah pursued Jeroboam, and he captured several cities from him, Bethel and his villages, Jeshanah and his villages, and Ephraim and his villages. Jeroboam did not again muster strength in the days of Abijah. Yahweh struck him, and he died. Abijah established himself. He married 14 wives, begetting 22 sons and 16 daughters. The rest of the deeds of Abijah and his ways and records are written in the narration of the prophet Edo. Abijah lay with his forefathers, and they buried him in the city of Dawid. Asa, his son, reigned in his place. In his days the land was tranquil for 10 years. Chapter 14. Asa did what was good and proper in the eyes of Yahweh his Elohim. He removed the alien altars in the high places, shattered the idolatrous pillars, and cut down the Asherah trees. He told Judah to seek Yahweh, the Elohim of their forefathers, and to observe the Torah and the commandments. He removed the high places and sun images from all the cities of Judah. And my alarm went off. He removed the high places and sun images from all the cities of Judah, and the kingdom was tranquil before him. He built fortified cities in Judah, for the land was tranquil, and he had no wars during these years, for Yahweh had granted him rest. He said to Judah, Let us build up these cities and surround them with walls and towers, double doors and bolts. The land is still before us because we have sought out Yahweh Elohim. We have sought him out, and he has granted us rest all around. So they built and they succeeded. Asa had an army bearing shield and spear. From Judah 300,000, and from Benjamin 280,000, who bore bucklers and drew bows. All these were mighty warriors. Zerah the Ethiopian went out to war against them with an army of 1,000,000 men and 300 chariots, approaching up to Maresha. Asa went out before him, and they arrayed themselves for war in the valley of Saphath, near Maresha. Asa called out to Yahweh, his Elohim, saying, Yahweh, there is none besides you to help in battle, between the many and those with no strength. Help us, Yahweh Elohim, for we depend on you, and we have come in your name against this great multitude. You are Yahweh our Elohim. Let no human muster strength against you. Yahweh struck the Ethiopians before Asa and before Judah, and the Ethiopians fled. Asa and the people with him pursued them to Gerar, and the Ethiopians fell for lack of vitality, for they were crushed before Yahweh and before his camp. They carried off very much booty. They struck all the cities around Gerar, for the dread of Yahweh was upon them, and they plundered all the cities, for there was much plunder in them. They also struck tents of livestock and captured sheep in abundance and camels, and they returned to Jerusalem. Chapter 15. A spirit of Elohim came over Azariah, son of Oded, and he went out before Asa, saying to him, Hear me, Asa, and all of Judah and Benjamin. Yahweh is with you, because you are with him. If you seek him, he will make himself accessible to you. But if you will abandon him, he will abandon you. Many days passed by for Yasharal without a true Elohim, and without a Kohen to teach, and without Torah. But they returned to Yahweh, the Elohim of Yasharal, when they were in trouble, and he made himself accessible to them. In those times there had been no peace for people coming and going, for many disturbances affected all the inhabitants of the land. One nation was battered by the other, and one city by the other, for Elohim confounded them with all kinds of trouble. But you be strong, and do not lose resolve, for there is reward for your actions. When Asa heard these words and the prophecy of the son of Oded the prophet, he was encouraged, and he removed the detestable things from all the land of Judah and Benjamin, and from the cities which he had conquered, from Mount Ephraim, and he renewed the altar of Yahweh that was before the hall of Yahweh. He gathered together all of Judah and Benjamin, and those from Ephraim and Manasseh and Simeon who dwelt among them. For many a people of Yahweh defected to him when they saw that Yahweh his Elohim was with him. They were gathered in Jerusalem in the 3rd month of the 15th year of Asa's reign. They brought offerings to Yahweh on that day from the spoils that they had taken, 700 cattle and 7,000 sheep. They entered into a covenant to seek out Yahweh, the Elohim of their forefathers, with all their heart and with all their soul. And anyone who would not seek Yahweh, Elohim of Yasharal, will be put to death, whether small or great, man or woman. They swore to Yahweh in a loud voice and with shouts, with trumpets and with shofars. All of Judah rejoiced over the oath, for they had sworn with all their heart. They had sought him with all their desire, and he was accessible to them. Yahweh had granted them rest all around them. King Asa even deposed his grandmother Ma'akah from being a queen, because she had made an abomination to Asherah. Asa chopped up her abomination and ground it up and burned it in the Kidron ravine. The high places did not cease from Yasharal nevertheless. Asa's heart was perfect all his days. He brought in the consecrated goods of his father, and his own consecrated goods to the temple of Yahweh, silver and gold vessels. 16. There was no war until the 35th year of Asa's reign. In the 36th year of Asa's reign, Baasa, king of Yasharal, attacked Judah and built up Ramah, in order to prevent Asa, king of Judah, from leaving or entering. Asa removed silver and gold from the treasuries of the temple of Yahweh and the king's palace, and sent it to Ben-Hadad, the king of Aram, who dwelt in Damascus, saying, There is a treaty between me and you, and between my father and your father. Behold, I have sent you silver and gold. Go annul your treaty with Baasa, king of Yasharal, so that he will depart from me. Ben-Hadad heeded King Asa, and he sent the officers of his soldiers against the cities of Yasharal. They struck at Ijon, Dan, and Abel Maim, and all the storage cities among the cities of Naphtali. When Baasa heard this, he ceased his building of Ramah, and he halted his work. And King Asa took all of Judah, and they carried away the stones of Ramah and its wood, with which Baasa had built, and with them King Asa built up Gabaa and Mizpah. At that time Hanani the seer came to Asa, king of Judah, and said to him, because you relied on the king of Aram, and did not rely on Yahweh, your Elohim, therefore the army of the king of Aram will slip out your hands. Behold, the Ethiopians and the Lubim constituted an immense army, with very many chariots and horsemen. Yet when you relied on Yahweh, he delivered them into your hand. For Yahweh's eyes roam throughout the land, to strengthen those whose hearts are sincerely with him. For you have been foolish in this, for from now on you will have wars. Asa became angry with the seer, and he put him in prison, for he was furious with him for this. Asa began to oppress some of the people at that time. Behold, earlier and latter events of Asa recorded in the book of Kings of Judah and Yasharal. Asa became ill in his legs in the 39th year of his reign, until his illness spread upwards. Also, in his illness, he did not seek out Yahweh, but only doctors. Asa lay with his forefathers. He died in the 41st year of his reign. They buried him in his grave that he had dug for himself in the city of David. They laid him down in a bed that he had filled with spices and all types of perfumes, blended with an apothecary's art, and he made a very large pyre for him. Yeah, man. He's supposed to make what's that? Jeremiah 17:5, and also Psalm, I think 142:3, if I'm not mistaken. Or say, trust not in the Son of Man, and cursed is the man who makes flesh. Cursed is the man who makes flesh, who trusts in flesh, basically, and doesn't put his trust in the Most High. That's exactly what happened to Asa. Instead of relying on the Most High, who already destroyed many people that outnumbered him and gave the enemy into his hands, all of a sudden he wants to trust in humans instead of the Most High. Then he gets sick and doesn't trust in the Most High, but he trusts in doctors only. He made flesh his arm, and let that be a lesson to us. Don't trust in no man, no woman. The Most High above everything, above our own will also. Chapter 17, Shalom Sage. His son Jehoshaphat reigned in his place, and he strengthened his reign over Yasharal. He placed forces in all the fortified cities of Judah, and he stationed garrisons in the land of Judah and in the cities of Ephraim, that his father Asa had captured. Yahweh was with Jehoshaphat, for he followed the original paths of his father David, and did not seek out the Baal idols, but he sought out the Elohim of his father and followed his commandments, unlike the deeds of the kingdom of Yasharal. So Yahweh established the kingdom in his hands, and all of Judah brought tributes to Jehoshaphat, and he had much wealth and honor. His heart was elevated in the ways of Yahweh. Furthermore, he eliminated the high places and Asherah trees from Judah. In the 3rd year of his reign, he sent his officers Ben-Hail, Obadiah, Zechariah, Nathaniel, and Micaiah to give instruction in the cities of Judah. With them were the Levites Shemaiah, Nethaniah, Zebediah, Asahel, Shemiramoth, Jehonathan, Adonijah, Tobijah, and Adonijah, the Levites, and with them were Elishama and Jehoram and the Kohanim. They gave instruction in Judah, taking with them the book of the Torah of Yahweh. They went around to all the cities of Judah, and they taught among the people. The dread of Yahweh was upon all the kingdoms of the land that were around Judah. They did not make war against Jehoshaphat. Some of the Philistines will bring tribute and loads of silver to Jehoshaphat. Also the Arabs will bring in flocks, 7,700 rams and 7,700 goats. Jehoshaphat grew continuously ever greater. He built castles and storage cities in Judah. He had a great working force in the cities of Judah and soldiers, mighty warriors in Jerusalem. These were their number according to their families. Officers of thousands were from Judah, with Adnah as the leader, and 300,000 mighty warriors with him. At his side was the officer that name always tripped me up, Jehohanan, and 280,000 with him. At his side was Amasiah, son of Zikri, who volunteered to Yahweh, and 200,000 mighty warriors with him. Of Benjamin, Eliada, a mighty warrior, and with him 200,000 men armed with bows and shields. At his side was Jehozabad, and 180,000 armed for the legion with him. These were the men who ministered to the king, besides those whom the king stationed in the fortified cities in all of Judah. Now you see the difference between him, Jehoshaphat. He had all the people of the lands, just like Solomon, bringing him gifts and stuff. What it say? When you're righteous or whatever, or when your ways please the Most High, He will make even your enemies be at peace with you. Chapter 18. This final chapter for the night. We're gonna finish. I might actually finish Second Chronicles early tomorrow, depending on how things go. If not, very least, we're gonna finish this whole cycle by tomorrow night, and then start all over. Chapter 18. Jehoshaphat had much wealth and honor. He allied himself in marriage to Ahab. After several years, he went down to Ahab at Samaria. Ahab slaughtered a great many sheep and cattle for him and the people accompanying him, and he incited him to go up for war against Ramoth Gilead. He said to Jehoshaphat, "Will you go to do battle with me for Ramoth Gilead?" He answered him, "I shall be like you, my people shall be like your people, with you in war." Jehoshaphat then said to the king of Yasharal, "Inquire, please, today of the word of Yahweh." The king of Yasharal gathered the prophets, 400 men, and said to them, "Shall we go to war for Ramoth Gilead, or shall I refrain?" They answered, "Go up, for Elohim will deliver it into the hand of the king." Jehoshaphat said, "Is there no longer here a prophet of Yahweh whom we may inquire?" The king of Yasharal answered Jehoshaphat, "There is one more man through whom to inquire of Yahweh, but I hate him, for he does not prophesy good for me, but only bad all his life. That is Micaiah, son of Imlah." Jehoshaphat said, "Let the king not speak this way." So the king of Yasharal summoned one officer and said, "Rush Micaiah, son of Imlah, there." And that ties into the Jeremiah 8:8, where people were the false pen of the scribes. They were prophesying falsehood and good things instead of what actually was supposed to happen. And people want to be, they always want to hear good shit, soothsaying and all that. And like the old saying goes, be like, you can't handle the truth, or the truth isn't popular, but you either take the red pill or the blue pill, man. Truth hurts sometimes, most of the time, but it's necessary. Verse 9. The king of Yasharal and Jehoshaphat, king of Judah, were sitting, each man on his throne, dressed in royal garb, sitting at the threshing floor at the gateway of Samaria, and all the prophets were prophesying before them. Zedekiah, son of Chenaanah, made himself iron horns and said, "Thus said Yahweh, with these you shall gore Aram until they are obliterated." All the prophets were prophesying similarly, saying, "Go up to Ramoth Gilead and triumph, for Yahweh will deliver it into the hand of the king." The messenger who had gone to summon Micaiah spoke to him, saying, "Behold, the words of the prophets are unanimously, I can't speak right now, favorable towards the king. Please let your words be like those of one of them, and speak favorably." But Micaiah said, "As Yahweh lives, I swear that whatever my Elohim says to me, that shall I speak." He said to the king, and the king said to him, "Micah, shall we go to war for Ramoth Gilead, or shall I refrain?" He said, "Go up and triumph, and they will be delivered into your hand." The king then said to him, "I adjure you many times over that you speak to me nothing but the truth in the name of Yahweh." Micaiah then said, "I have seen all the Yasharal scattering to the mountains, like sheep that have no shepherd. And Yahweh was saying, These have no master. Let each man go to his house in peace." The king of Yasharal said to Jehoshaphat, "Did I not tell you that he never prophesies good for me, but only bad?" Micaiah said further, Therefore listen to the word of Yahweh. I have seen Yahweh sitting upon his throne, with all the hosts of heaven standing on his right and his left. And Yahweh said, who will lure Ahab, king of Yasharal, to go up to war, that he may fall in Ramoth Gilead? This one said, like this, and this one said, like this. Then the spirit came forward and stood up before Yahweh and said, I shall lure him. And Yahweh said, how? The spirit replied, I will go out and be a spirit of falsehood in the mouths of all his prophets. And Yahweh said, you will lure him and you will succeed. Go forth and do so. And now behold, Yahweh has put a spirit of falsehood in the mouths of these prophets of yours, for Yahweh has decreed evil upon you. Yeah, I just want to point out, where's it also at? In Second Kings, I think, or First Kings. This is also it's getting reiterated here. Now you see, he said he saw the Most High sitting on his throne, all the hosts of heaven on his right and left. There was one throne. He didn't say there was another throne, and on his right and left. Now once there was a perfect time to say he saw his son or something like that, or another throne. It's not mentioned there. Nobody was named but the Most High. Just keep that in mind. Anyway, 23. Zedekiah, son of Cha'ana, then approached and struck Micah on the cheek and said, in what way did the spirit of Yahweh pass from me to speak to you? Micaiah said, behold, you will see for yourself on that day when you go inside a room within a room to be hidden. The king of Yasharal then said, take Micaiah and turn him over to Amon, the minister of the city, and to Joash, the king's son, and say, thus said to the king, put this one in the prison and feed him a minimum of food and a minimum of water until I return in peace. Micaiah said, if you indeed return in peace, then Yahweh did not speak through me. And he said further, hear this, all the peoples. The king of Yasharal and Jehoshaphat, king of Judah, then went up to wage war at Ramoth Gilead. The king of Yasharal said to Jehoshaphat, I will disguise myself when I come to the battle, but you wear your royal garments. So the king of Yasharal disguised himself and went out to battle. The king of Aram commanded his chariot commanders, saying, do not wage war with anyone weak or strong, but only with the king of Yasharal himself. It happened that when the chariot commanders saw Jehoshaphat, they said, this is the king of Yasharal, and they surrounded him to fight him. Jehoshaphat cried out, and Yahweh came to his aid, all praises. Elohim induced them away from him. When the chariot commanders realized that he was not the king of Yasharal, they turned away from him. One man drew his bow aimlessly, yet hit the king of Yasharal between the joints of his armor. The king said to the driver, reverse your hand and take me out of the camp, for I am wounded. The war intensified on that day, and the king forced himself to stand up in his chariot in the presence of Aram until the evening. He died at the time of the setting of the sun. But Jehoshaphat, king of Judah, returned safely to his house in Jerusalem. No, man, most I tell you do something, do it. Tell you don't. All right, I'm doing so much reading. I think I figured out why it hurts my throat to read so much, because I really don't. It's like the first time I ever really read out loud for extended periods of time, and I really don't talk that much. I'm more of a, like, as you would say, that's one of the laws of power. The fourth law of power is say less than necessary. It's also in the Bible, in the Proverbs. It said that somewhere. A lot of the Proverbs are actually in the laws of power. But yeah, I really don't talk a lot, especially loud. So I think even when I was recording music like a couple years ago, if I was in the booth and I was like I couldn't even do too many songs. My throat would start like giving out. I think that's what it is. Like, I don't really use my vocal cords too much. So me reading all this so much, I think it just like strained my. I just gotta get used to it. What's it called? What was the word I was thinking of? Sigma. I'm more like a Sigma, if you would describe me. I don't do my own thing, lone wolf. I let my presence and say more for me than words. They say the loudest person in the room usually is the weakest. And I believe that I don't really gotta say too much, except when it's time to say something. But yeah, y'all, we're gonna continue. I might continue. I might finish this off early tomorrow, maybe time, probably around 10 o'clock. I'll start. If not, then tomorrow night, get it finished before the Sabbath, before Bada Shabbat. And I think Menelet's gonna start the new Torah portion. So yeah, y'all, Shalom. May Most High's hand be over you and lift you through your trials and strengthen you, put you through the fire as gold, shelter you through the fire like he did. I forgot the three Hebrew boys' names, and as Daniel in the lion's den, have that faith that nothing can touch you. Trust in him, nobody else. Don't even trust in yourself, because the heart, who can know the heart? It is deceitful. So put your trust in him above everything. Seek the perfection and keep the commandments. Stay away from strife as much as possible. Be slow to anger. And that's the real power. Not letting other people get you, know how to attack you and know your weaknesses, know how to trigger you and get your blood pressure rising. The real power is their blood pressure rising because they can't get under your skin. Time for everything. Time for war, time for peace. So when it's time for war, do your thing. But yeah, yo, Shalom. All praise to the Most High, Yahweh God.